can all hear us. So I'm Abby. I'm just going to call the meeting to order. I think the first thing we're going to do is we actually have a special guest from Wildman Chalmers. Chad, I believe, is on Zoom. And we're really excited because tonight they're going to present about the firehouse that we're all so familiar with at the corner of Lay and Lowry. And so I'm going to pass these around if you wouldn't mind. That would be awesome, Morgan. There should be enough. And let me make sure I can drop in the chat here the PDF version so we can all take a look. Chad, are you on? Are you ready to speak about the firehouse?
I am. Thank you.
Great. Can everybody hear that? It's kind of quiet.
It's a little soft.
All right, well, Chad, give me 1 second here. I gotta see if I can change my microphone to my display here. Chad, try again.
How's this now?
Great. Okay. For those of you on Zoom, let me find this PDF and I'll drop it in the chat for you in one minute. But Chad, I'll let you kick it off.
Okay. Can you allow me to share the screen?
Yes. Let's see. There you go. You should be good.
Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
So everybody has the same information that Chad's showing on Zoom. That's in the packet. So don't worry if you can't see tiny font up here. All right, we're good to go, Chad. Go for it.
Great. Hey, thank you everyone for attending. My name is Chad Chalmers, and we have been participating with the URA for the request for proposal for the redevelopment of the firehouse. We are one of 4 developers that submitted for this project, and we were shortlisted to exclusive negotiations to be the redeveloper of this project. Correct me if I'm wrong, Abby, but you were on the board for the selection of this committee, as well as some other people from Troy Hill Citizens.
We actually did have 2 board members on the committee. I didn't take up a seat. I let some other people have some fun.
Excellent. So it was my understanding that we were selected. The goal of the firehouse and the development is for a cafe and market. And the cafe and market would serve the community as well as act as a location for food for farmers markets that can be brought in for local farms in the Washington County area. There is a significant amount of produce that's currently being wasted and thrown out throughout the country. And so our goal is to be able to bring in better produce to the area as well as a fresh market. And the goal would also be to expand this into some sort of farmer's market on Saturday morning, which could potentially close down the street to create a great area, which I would call kind of the town center of the Troy Hill area. I can go through the slides. These are much better if they're interactive. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to stop me. Like I said, this is for your benefit. By all means, ask me any question you want. So everyone's very familiar with the firehouse. Anyone that's on the committee on Troy Hill Citizens, I'm sure knows where it is. This proposal is for a presentation to the Zoning Board of Administrations tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. We are asking for a variance for what's called a use variance because the building right now, believe it or not, is actually in a residential district. The commercial district stops right here between the corner and this becomes residential. Now, this is partly due to overlay zoning, meaning this was never zoned in the first place and someone just drew a line arbitrarily and said, this is the end of the commercial district. We feel as though the highest and best value use for this building is for a community market cafe and not as a residential house. We've seen houses being built on Troy Hill, residential houses where people have overbuilt them and they've sat for 10 years. So we feel as though what's allowable by right by the zoning code is not the best use for the community. So we'll go into the project narrative a little bit about, community engagement, sustainability goals, women-owned business, and kind of ownership and entity. So, really the goal is to use the first 2,200 square feet of the first floor of the fire station as a market. And the market is currently exists in Washington County. So the market is already in place in another location. This will be its second location. And they have customers already in the area that are already patronizing this business. So the business is already a good model and they're looking for a location. The parking aspect of this is because it's under 2,400 square feet, which is the development, which is 2,200 square feet. Right now, there is no parking that's required by the zoning code. So we can't park anywhere. There's no parking spots on site. This is something that we would want to work with the community to make sure that we park in the proper location and it doesn't disrupt the community members. We've reached out to St. Anthony's Church. We've reached out to the Gulf Station, to West Banco, to Troy Hill citizens, specifically Abby, and really, tried to reach out to everyone to get input. And we've tried to take that input and incorporate it in. As far as sustainability goals, we get asked that a lot. Really, the most sustainable building is an existing building. So our plan is to reuse the existing building and add energy efficient lighting and HVAC to it. Because this is a URA project, we are required to meet WBMBE plans. WBMBE plans are women or minority owned businesses. So we are engaging in both those types of businesses to help us build this program. Basically, there's going to be a couple pieces to this. The ownership entity would include QG Holdings. QG Holdings is a real estate development company that myself and my business partner own. We own a few buildings in the Troy Hill area, including the Lager and Lowry, the old hotel on the corner, which we've fixed up over the last 6 years. We also own the building behind it, which is on Lager Street, was actually bought from one of the Troy Hill citizens members at one time. And then most recently, we bought the medical office building, which we are converting into our office. And we are currently looking to lease our building, which is the corner of Lowry and Lager, for another retail use. We have some pretty exciting tenants that are very interested in that now. This is the proposed plan. Basically a layout with a market, some retail space, and a couple of bathrooms. It isn't, honestly, it isn't a huge renovation because it is a historic building. There isn't a lot we can do to the building. We want to respect the historic structure. We want to respect the classic neoclassical architecture and make sure we maintain that. So anything done to this building will be done in a way that has to pass the National Park standard for historic renovation. So the short of it is we don't plan to modify the outside of the building other than just trying to enhance the existing historic features. Just kind of an overall sketch of the top of this, how this could really create a great town square, town center for Troy Hill. We feel as though it could be a great area to really kind of develop that point at which the two roads converge in an area for the community. Again, just another conceptual drawing. Again, we're in very conceptual stages. We haven't finalized any of this point because we still need to get a variance. The variance tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock will be presented to the zoning board. Exterior elevations, again, really staying very similar. We hope to replace the front doors with, instead of the garage doors, with something that's more historically representative to what would have been there at one time when they actually had a horse-drawn carriage for firefighting. They used to have little doors here, so they had more of a carriage door rather than overhead garage door. And that'll lend itself nicely to a market so we can open those doors up on nice days. This is Emerald Valley Artisans Market. We have signed a letter of intent for them to be the tenant that would lease this space. They currently do all kinds of artisan cheeses, fresh vegetables, and really work with the local farms to bring in great food and preserve them from everything from pickling to fresh vegetables, to cheeses, to deli meats, and so forth. Just a little bit about our tenant statement. I don't want to bore you by reading through this, but the goal is to really provide a market that's economically sustainable and that meets the not only all different incomes. In other words, SNAP benefits will be readily available for anyone that wants to use those there, as well as anyone that wants to use other means and forms. So the goal is not to price this market out of the ability for the neighbors and everyone here to patronize the market as well as enjoy the food there. Different imagery and concepts that we're thinking about is to how to create this great market. The biggest concern I've always had is that Troy Hill is kind of a food desert. For those of you not familiar with the term, there's really no place to get food in Troy Hill at the moment because there's the Unimart, which we all know, but the Unimart has limited food with limited nutritional value. Other than maybe Pepsi or Doritos, there really isn't a whole lot there. So we really want to bring better fresh food, farm to table, to Troy Hill. Community outreach plan, as I said, I've reached out to Troy Hill citizens, St. Anthony's, Scratch, Golf Station. I've also reached out to Bobby Wilson and our councilman for the 1st District, and we have a support letter from him in this packet as well. So that has also been something we've tried to reach out to everyone. This is a letter of support from the Department of Agriculture. The Department of Agriculture really likes the idea of us bringing fresh food from farms that are struggling right now, that are literally tilling their crops underground. So the goal would be to bring a lot of this surplus food into the city where people need it, and to be able to bring it at a good value, because a lot of times this is tilled under due to supply and demand and surplus food. It's not uncommon. Over COVID, we weren't able to bring this kind of food to market. And so we have support from the Department of Agriculture Secretary. We also have a letter of support from the House of Representatives as well. So we've really kind of reached out. This is a letter from Troy Hill citizens. This is a letter from Bobby Wilson. And then also there's also a letter. I probably have about 24 letters in here. I can kind of flip through those quickly, but you also have a copy of these as well if you want to read through the support of the project. These are letters of minority workforce incentives that the URA would set goals for us to meet. And then this is the kind of last piece, which is the zoning map. As you can see, everything in red would allow us to put this market in there by right. They have decided to cut the firehouse out of the red area. And I would argue the hardship is there's no other development for this fire station other than residential, single family residential, mind you, it's allowable by right. So that's why tomorrow we're asking for the zoning board to give us relief from this, to be able to bring a market in rather than a single family home. Just some pictures. These are pictures of our postings. We have to show that we posted this, what time we took the pictures, just some kind of boring stuff. And then just a little bit about our company. Studio WC and Wildman Chalmers Design has invested significantly in Troy Hill over the last 6 years, including we currently have 4 pieces of property that we fixed up, and we feel like we've done a really nice job on those, including the biggest one right now, which is the undertaking of the Troy Hill Medical Center for our new office building. Just a certificate of a women-owned business. Does anyone have any questions, concerns, anything I can address or speak to further?
There are lots of questions. I'm gonna go to the room first and see, anybody have any questions for Chad?
Couple questions.
All right, Sam's first.
I noticed on these letters of support, I don't see anybody from Froman Street or Lay Street. Were they?
Okay.
Did you reach out to those residents? Because they're the ones that are going to be affected by this project.
We reached out to a lot of residents. I mean, like I said, I mean, I only have so much time to do this due to the quick turnaround of this, but I did reach out to a lot of folks. Specifically, I can go through them and find out where each one of these, see if there's anyone from Layman or Lay on there.
There is none. I asked that.
Okay, fair enough. So then the answer is no, I have not.
So I think, and Sam, your particular question is leading towards both the parking issue and potentially this farmer's
And
market
closing
street
it all,
closure
yes.
issue. Yeah,
That's
right.
going to affect those people. the most.
Right, so, and we actually have kind of had a trial of this a little bit because we know Scratch during the pandemic was using that as an outdoor seating area. Listen, I can't speak for every neighbor on Froman or Lay. I live on Harpster. It was fine to go around, but that was my personal benefit. I see Penny shaking her head. She disagrees.
Well, it's not me, it's the one that lives directly behind her, and she complained about it.
All the time. There you go.
And she just
Mixed
had a
bag.
different place, so there's a lot of issues that we do have to take into consideration for these neighbors, like. I was even thinking that delivery trucks now, how are they gonna,
Mhm.
you know, there's a lot of issues there that's gonna affect the community, and this is a wonderful idea, but we gotta make sure we solve these problems before this happens.
Right. So Chad, can you actually, on this topic, because I know it's gonna be a hot topic for us. Can you tell us where in this stage, you know, right now, you're literally at the ground stage of this, right? I anticipate that you have a lot of, there's a lot ahead of us right now. I mean, clearly you're not turning around and opening, you know, the market tomorrow, or closing the street tomorrow. So where are we at in our timeline to make sure we're touching base with these neighbors?
Yeah, great question. I would say that we are 9 to 12 months away from this happening, and we're really, really early on in the process. If we have objections tomorrow, the project goes away. And in other words, if we don't get a use variance tomorrow, then the project's over and it stops. So I understand concerns about parking. It's always a concern in every project. I would say that, you know, we understand that, but also I think you need to look at the greater good here. And if there's someone we need to work with specifically to manage the parking in front of someone's house by putting a specific sign up there, I think that can be done. But, you know, the one thing about parking is that if you look at parking challenges throughout the city, all great neighborhoods have a little bit of a parking challenge. I'm not saying that we're intentionally bringing a parking challenge to this, but if you want change in redevelopment, which maybe I'm wrong, maybe people don't want the community development or community market. I think that some of that has to have a little bit of sacrifice, right? And the goal would be to talk to folks and find out how we can make sure that we're bringing people to Troy Hill while respecting the residents that have been there for years.
So I think that's a great point. Because we're early in this process, I think we have time to contact these neighbors and make sure, Penny, for instance, I mean, we should help her apply for a handicap parking space if she has mobility issues, you know? That's something that we should be working on. And you know what? Going back to that, you know, the street permit issue, which we always say we don't want, the folks on Froman could vote for permit parking on their own street, and that would solve their own issue, at least in a small way, right? So I think we have some options on the parking situation. I'm sure that'll come back up. But Sam, do you feel like your question was answered in reaching out to neighbors?
Yes and no. And the other thing is about the emergency.
Okay,
Fire truck.
Yeah, let's hear it.
ambulances. Chrome is the main way to get down there. We had that problem with Scratch. If you get another fire company that is not from the north side that's filling for a company, they don't know how to get there. That's the problem.
so I think that might be something that we can take up with Councilman Wilson's office in terms of making sure those city services, those need to be coordinated. I mean, you know, that road could be closed for paving, and they would need to know how to get around that. So I think that's an important point for our neighborhood regardless. That's something we can follow up on, I think. I think Morgan was first in the room. And then I'll hit the gentleman up in the blue shirt. I'm sorry, I don't know your first name.
Al,
Al, I'll get you next. Morgan, go for it.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. So I just wanna, I see a bit of a discrepancy between the conceptual drawings and what's written into the narrative here about parking. And again, I know this is going to be likely the biggest issue for folks, so I know we're in the conceptual stage, but I want to clarify this. So in the conceptual drawing, I see what looks like a market that is open on Froman. It looks like the block of Froman off play, that is the part that is closed. But in the project narrative and elsewhere, I see mention of closing Lay Street, which is a pretty significant throughway. So I do want to clarify whether it is Froman that is closed in this proposal or whether it is Lay that is closed, because those present two completely separate issues.
Yes, so the proposal is this, that we would be closing Froman, which is the side of the building, not the front of the building.
You may want to clarify then, because your proposal currently says closing Lay Street in multiple.
Got it.
Yeah, Chad, that's a great call out, Morgan. Yeah, I don't know that as a neighborhood, we could get on board with closing Lay Street, but I think that Froman Street's, maybe a little more possible for the reasons Morgan said, buses, et cetera. Okay, Al, you were next.
Same exact comment, pages 5 and 6.
Pages 5 and 6, great.
Additional question is, what time, I missed that part, what time would you be closing whatever street, or what time for farmers market?
Chad,
Yeah,
go ahead.
great question. So I don't know that. So first of all, just to be clear, I'm not the operator, and I am only the developer of the building itself. So I would have to rely on the operator. I would assume the operator would be closing it just on a Saturday morning for an event or something like that. So, and to do this, I want to point out that we're purely developing the building right now. And to do the closure of that street, we would need to go through a separate process to do that. So if this was to be brought up again to actually do the street closures, that would be addressed at that time. So really, honestly, I'm purely developing the building as a market to let someone else operate it. I would not be seeking any closure of any street. The operator would be doing that. And they would have to apply for a second permit.
So I think, Chad, obviously, again, we're early in this process, this group has really just passed the URA's first round, right, to step into this window of development. I think obviously, Chad, the proprietor of the business, that market, we would love to be connected with her and her team, to have her come to these meetings. We can have this conversation on a more specific level. I understand that you are not running a market necessarily, so you may not know what the business plan is, but yeah. Okay, hold on, Penny. I just want to make sure that there are any questions in the online chat. Chad, did Most Holy Name reply about whether or not did you have any positive conversation that you may be able to lease or rent parking from any of the existing parking lots up here yet?
So we have tried we've reached out to St. Anthony because they have the largest parking lot, and they were unwilling to lease any parking spots. I worked through the diocese, and it's just, they said it's not something that they do. So I'd be open to more conversations for leasing of spots if I got to that point. And, maybe someone knows someone else. I also talked to West Banco. West Banco is open on Saturday from 8 to noon. So it's not as though I actually, I didn't reach out to these folks. I actually did go visit them in person, and no one was really willing to give up that parking.
Give it up. Okay, that's good to know for now. I'm sorry, Penny, I think.
I do have one question with the as a developer. Delivery trucks, because we have like school bus stops right there, and that's, like she said, a main artery traffic on Lay Street. So where would the delivery truck, when you're developing it, where would the delivery truck be delivering?
Most likely the delivery truck will be delivering to kind of the front pad right here. And we would be working with them to deliver on off times to make sure that, it really wouldn't disrupt anything. And it would be a small box truck and even potentially a small van. So we're not talking about bringing 18-wheelers in here, if that makes sense.
Well, I understand that, but it's a narrow space now, and if it's too big of a box truck, like when the children are coming from school, or even people are going to work, delivery trucks come all different times, so that's a big concern also because of that. It's not being able to deliver on the side.
Yeah, I think, Chad, that might be something we can address. Well, there's sort of two questions in that. One is, I think Penny's thinking long-term in terms of the market, and I think that's what we need to address the business owner. I do have a question, which I'll sort of piggyback off that, which is, what does the construction headache look like for residents during the construction phase this? Like, are there gonna be any pain points there?
Honestly, most of the construction is interior. Most of the construction is mechanical and electrical. In other words, the construction is interior only. We would not be closing down sidewalks. There would be construction trucks there to during the construction process. But I think that there's quite a bit of parking on Lay Street and Lowry Street that they could park on. So I would say that there's going to be no street closures and there'd be no sidewalk closures because the work is primarily restrooms and fit out of equipment on the inside of the building.
Okay, great, good to know. Pat Campbell online commented, how much vehicle traffic is estimated when the new market opens? Pat, I think that might be another question for the business owner herself. I mean, that's hard to estimate. Chad, have you done any like vehicle counts or anything? Do you have any sense of that from her current location?
We have not. I'm not the tenant, so I wouldn't know how much that is. But it could depend, right? It could seriously depend. And, obviously we want the tenant in the market to succeed. If we don't have vehicle counts, the market won't succeed and we'll have an empty firehouse again.
Right, absolutely.
So it's definitely a fine line of working with the community to make sure that this market knits with the community well. And, it does need traffic to survive. And so, parking's always a hot topic. And we definitely we definitely understand that. And I think that, when we get to the next level, that's when that's going to have to be addressed on a case by case basis. And, if this thing becomes a wild success, it's not a terrible thing for Troy Hill. It's going to be a harder thing just to manage the folks that come from other neighborhoods to Troy Hill to the market.
Yeah, okay, hold on, let me see if Al has another question. Oh, I'm sorry, Evan first, then we'll get back to Al.
Hey Chad, are you planning on being the long-term landlord, or are you planning to develop it and find a new buyer later on? And if you are planning to keep it, what are your plans for the rest of the building? There's an extensive second floor and other places in the building that I don't see any plans for in this particular.
Yeah, there is no plans for the second floor at this time. The other projects that submitted this project submitted $3 million renovations to this building, which quite frankly just don't work right now. So the goal would be to get the market up and running to activate the first floor. Once the first floor was activated, there's been talks about using the second floor for some sort of office space to be able to support the produce and the market itself. So right now we don't have any plans for the second floor, but that would have to be a separate community process and a whole separate process that would have to be gone through again. Part of the reason we were selected is because our pro forma, meaning our actual numbers of construction, the numbers actually worked. In other words, putting millions of dollars into Troy Hill doesn't make a lot of sense right now. So that's, I think, why the URA liked our financial numbers.
One of the questions.
So what was the other piece?
Are you planning on being the long-term landlord?
Chad, are you planning to be the long-term landlord was the other part of that question. Do you have any intent to sell the building post-development of the first floor?
I really can't tell you the answer to that question, but the short answer is I have no plans on selling it. We have holdings in Troy Hill, and our plans are to improve properties there and hang on to them. We're moving out of one of our buildings now, and we're going to hang on to that and continue to make sure that it's maintained. And it's a good building. So I'm 45 years young at this point, so I've got another 20 years at least that I'd like to hold on to property for.
Okay, good to know. Any follow-up from that, Evan?
Like you say, we're all, if it happens, one would want it to be a success. Do you have, if it doesn't work, I mean, I'm just thinking about remembering talking to Don about Scratch, and he's been through about 8 different changes since he opened because plans 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 didn't work. So do you have kind of a plan B or C if this doesn't quite work out?
Well, so one of our specialties is restaurants and markets in the Pittsburgh area. And so that if we had the space built out, we feel pretty strongly, given the amount of space up there with this kind of facility, that we could lease it out to another, some other kind of a tenant. I mean, but again, it's, you have to take a risk in real estate. If I could predict that, I'd probably be buying empty office buildings downtown, right?
No.
Hmm. It's a bad time to buy office buildings, I think, all the work from home. Okay, I think I'm gonna hop over to Al, and then I know Janet has a question. Al, what's up?
What are your plans for being green as far as upgrades with your HVAC, solar power, LED lighting, things of that nature?
It'll have a full upgrade of HVAC. It will have, right now, it will likely have all LED lights. So right now, sustainability is a code requirement. In other words, there's a requirement for daylight harvesting, which will have all LED lighting. As far as solar panels right now, I doubt very much that we'll put solar panels on this building. Right now, the solar panels have not made a lot of sense since the Obama era of solar panels has kind of sunset. The solar panels return on investment right now are about 8 to 9 years. With Biden's announcement today of new solar panels and investment into that, it's not out of the question, but right now, 8 to 9 years return on investment doesn't make a lot of sense right now. That doesn't mean it won't change in the future.
That's a great question. Janet.
Most Holy Name has a special ed class on Saturday mornings. And that could be a problem because they line up and they do use the park and they do have special things going on. Another question would be, what kind of food are they going to have in the cafe? And is there going to be a place to eat, or is it going to be just takeout?
Great question. Jen, I can guess that the first part of that with the special ed class, we'll need to work with the business owner to make sure we don't conflict. Chad, do you know about whether or not, I like the question of, that's a great question, whether or not they're gonna allow eat-in dining or just takeaway?
So right now, it's mostly takeout, it's grab and go kind of stuff. It doesn't mean that they wouldn't put a couple tables in there. We have built it with 2 bathrooms so that you can eat in there. You'll notice in Allegheny County, some restaurants have no bathrooms in there, which means they can't have any chairs. So I can't tell you if the sit-down traffic is going to be bigger than the takeout traffic. In the last 2 years, takeout has been so much more. But again, it's more of an operator question than a real estate developer question. I would imagine there would be some ability to eat in there, but I can't tell you for sure.
Okay.
Is it going to be the food that Scratch has on its menu now?
Great question. And actually, I think that so do you have any idea, Chad, if the food concepts overlap at all with Scratch?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I think if I had to guess, I think the answer is no, because it would be competing directly with Scratch. This is really going to have some shelf stabilized foods, also some fresh foods here. So I think this is going to be less prepared foods and more market concept, if that makes sense. But again, I'm not the operator. I really act only as the landlord to lease it to the operator.
Got it. And we do have a question in the chat about Scratch, actually. Can you just tell us I feel like people have said, oh, Scratch is opening a market. What's the relationship there? How is Don involved at Scratch?
Don is involved because he purchases food from Emerald Valley. He purchases some of his food from the local farms, and Emerald Valley acts as a distributor for all local farms. So between Don and Alyssa, who is the operator of Emerald Valley, those two are forming some sort of a joint partnership.
Great, okay, that clears up some questions because the URA did tweet, and Pat Campbell just dropped this in the chat. You know, that they said that it was a neighborhood grocery marketing cafe managed by owners of Scratch and Co. So just wanted to make sure we knew exactly kind of who was in the mix. Now, just for everybody on Zoom and everybody in the room, it's 6:37. We've had about 40 minutes of our meeting nearly with this concept. I'm not shutting down this conversation at all. I'm going to take a couple more questions before we move on. But I do want to kind of drive home the point that we're in the early stages of this. Chad and his team are kind of just, you know, dipping our toe in the water. As he said, if he doesn't get the variance tomorrow, then this is a non-issue. Then we have to hope for a billionaire to move in and turn the firehouse into his home, or her home, their home. In any case, I expect to hear a lot more about this project as we go on, and I think I would like to invite Chad to extend the Trail Citizens invitation to the owners of the market for our next round. I think that would be very illustrative for our group to help them kind of understand, you know, how that business wants to function day to day, which I think is a lot of the concerns. Questions in the audience? One more round. Yes, Chris.
It's just, we're just talking one day a week.
We don't know yet.
I mean, it's kind of useless to spend that much money just on one day a week.
So the market itself is not gonna be open like just one day a week, like the actual physical building. The debate over this one day a week is like, for instance, I mean, picture like the Bloomfield Saturday farmers market, so they
That's
close
in
a
a
lot.
park.
That's in the parking lot, but the idea would be to close Froman for that block and have it, let's say, I hate to even say hours because I don't own this business, but I'm just saying like 9 to noon or something. That's like sort of the vibe they're thinking of. So street closure for, you know, a couple hours potentially, and, you know, business operating hours to be determined. Does that make sense?
And that it would also be seasonal.
This farmer's market, well, unless you want to be standing out there in the snow, I guess I love you. Well, you know, Bloomfield goes pretty late though. It goes to like November, which is nice, I think. Anybody on Zoom have any questions? Would like to unmute? I know we've really been hanging in there. Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. I will happily share this PDF around, Chad, if I'm allowed to, with our neighbors.
Sure.
And you know, we'll keep our copies here, and I'm sure we will be hearing more about this. It seems very exciting. So thank you so much.
I will tell you, we won't be hearing anything for a little while because we're going to go into a 45-day dormant period where the URA and the zoning board have 45 days to decide. If anyone decides to appeal this project, the project will basically stop at that point. So I would say we're probably 4 months out before we might have any progress on this. This is community development, and this is how long it typically takes, unfortunately. So once we get our zoning decision, we will then move forward with some pricing. And then at that point, we'll need to go for further review. So we'll be back in touch before we go back in for the next round.
Okay, I think that sounds like an excellent plan. It might line up just perfectly with our October meeting. I think that might work out. Okay, Chad, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Your discussion was very lively, and for that, I am grateful. Totally different direction. I see Sergeant Burford and Commander Malloy on. I like to give them the floor so they can scoot off. Let's hear some updates on the police activity in Troy Hill and any crime stats we need to know about.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Good to see everyone. Thanks for having us here tonight. Commander, before I get started, is there anything you'd like to say first off, sir?
No, go ahead. Tonight.
Okay. All right, guys. Troy Hill, the last 30 days. Only one real incident to talk about, but just some of the numbers. 19 reports generated. The majority of those reports are not part one crimes. Actually, the majority of them are what we call our aided cases, which is some type of psychiatric call, either a 302 or a 201 commitment. We had some overdoses, non-fatal, Narcan administered multiple times. Some lives were saved by officers and the medics and the fire. And we had a handful of vehicle accidents. A lot of vehicle accidents this month up there. Other than that, we had one firearm recovered on an individual, and the big incident that kind of probably disrupted everyone and is alarming is back on the 25th of May. A 40-year-old male was shot in the 1400 block of Lowry Street. Last I heard, that male was in critical condition. I have not gotten any updates on his condition. Detectives advise that is an ongoing investigation, and it is quite active. So I don't have any updates to give on the investigation. It is just, it's being handled by our violent crime unit, and they are still investigating. So really, that's all the stats I have. Commander?
Hold on, I'm having some problems with my phone. Hi, everybody. No, I'm just here for any questions, if anybody has any questions about what's going on. I know I talked about walking the beats. We started that in the neighborhoods. We're gonna have the door hangers. I'm hoping to get that approved. I've been waiting for 2 weeks, but I actually found the financing for all that. So when that happens, the idea is that these door hangers, the officers will come around and put a door hanger on the door. We'll have a QRT code, and it'll direct you to one of our, like our web page through One Northside. And it'll have information like Coffee with Cops, things like that nature. And we were actually, we're gonna ask all the community groups if they want us to put their like Facebook links on there on our page also. But we're not, I'm waiting to get the approval, which should hopefully soon. But any questions on that?
Great. Questions for the commander or Sergeant Burford? Anybody? Penny?
I just have one. Is there anything that we can do about all these motorcycles? They're everywhere. They're flying, and there's a lot of kids on the street right now, and there's gonna be some kids getting hurt. It's ridiculous. What should we do?
Speeding motorcycles, is there like a specific?
And noise.
And no.
And the noise, yeah, the noise is startling too, but they are flying. There's children playing on the street. That's my bigger concern, the kids. You know what I mean? I don't wait till somebody's hurt and then we're gonna do something about it, like.
So we got questions about speeding, particularly motorcyclists and dirt bike riders up here.
So every summer we deal with this throughout the whole city, especially the ride-outs and all that. So in our policy, like officers are not allowed to pursue those when they try to make a stop because of safety reasons and for, you know, for even the rest of the public. I always suggest if you can videotape any of them, we try to follow up a lot on that. If you can get a plate, if they have a plate on the cycle, we can follow it up that way and still pursue charges that way. And then the best thing I could do also is try to get officers up there to keep an eye on it. And I can get lines painted up there on lay, but usually the traffic studies don't support that. That's the problem when I do those. Like we try to do speed enforcement.
Got it.
It
If you understand that.
appears like they're coming Spring Garden up Woodline and all over Troy Hill and back down, like they think it's a big raceway, and I'm not, I think they Spring Garden, but I'm not quite sure, but it's really, really bad.
So
I think,
you think
I'm
that
sorry, go
so
ahead.
she was just illustrating that she's getting a sense that there are folks who are like using it as like sort of a racetrack in the sense it's the same people kind of running the same routes. Is it possible we can get something like that we could try to figure out a time to ask your team to come by?
That would, yeah, if you know exactly when they're always hitting the streets, that definitely helps us. When we have like the unit up there.
Hey, maybe you can make some notes so we can report back to Commander Malloy about like, I feel like maybe like, is it dusk and they're out there? Like, I feel like that seems to be like a,
Yeah,
All the time, it's just ridiculous.
yeah. I know that.
I hear you.
Yeah,
It's one of my pet peeves, and it's throughout the whole city. It's actually throughout the whole zone. We get numerous complaints on it. We do the best we can. But honestly, if you could videotape and even get a plate, that really helps us. Or if you know where they're coming from, you know, the house, you know, that helps us too. You know, a lot of residents will notice like, oh, I know who's doing that, you know, and then they let us know, and then we can have that conversation with that owner.
Sounds like some public sleuthing is in order. I will say, I'm talking to the chat, it's not just motorcycles, everyone is speeding, blowing through stop signs, etc. I had to laugh because somebody posted on Troy Hill Citizens Facebook page, they intentionally run the stop sign by the monument because it didn't used to be there. I almost fell out of my chair when I read that they would put that on Facebook, but whatever. Anyway, so yes, traffic continues to be a problem. I know, and Penny, maybe people also help that, but people use Cowley as like that cut through and they speed up there and that like helps them kind of like accelerate. I think we talked about this when the bridge was closed, but I think we need to revisit this. We need to maybe target some places, and I know Councilman Wilson's office has been awesome about getting speed humps. And boy, would I love to see one of their cars fly off a little speed hump and never do it again. Like, how great would that be?
No comment.
Safe, no, just a little, just a surprise. I think that would be, especially we talked about that on Lowry, when the street was closed. Evan, you kind of were chiming in there as well. You want to add to that?
Different topic completely. So if you want to keep on speed and vehicle noise, I'll
Okay.
go back, but.
We'll come back to you in a second. Yeah, Jen.
With the streets, the portions dug up right now, it is a speed bump.
That's true. Thank you, PWSA. Hooray. Okay, we do have another question for you, Commander. Evan, you want to go?
Well, we read about this awful drive-by shooting downtown with the death of an infant, and read that the getaway vehicle was dumped in Troy Hill. Do we know whether that was just a location of convenience, or is one of our lovely neighbors part of that investigation?
I don't have the update on that from DCU, but I know they've made the arrests on that incident. So they didn't follow up with me at all about why that vehicle was dumped there.
We can tell you this, both of the individuals involved in that incident that have been arrested had no connection that we know of to Troy Hill, but they did have connection to Zone 1, the north side. So maybe that was just an area they got away and got picked up and dropped the vehicle at, but I don't know of any association to Troy Hill.
Great. All right. Any other? Oh, Al. Yeah.
Any updates on the Airbnb shooting down there on Madison?
Oh yeah, and
That's going to take a long time. They're really working that one, but they really have to dot their I's, cross their T's. That's going to take a while. I mean, I would say a year, if not better, on that investigation.
Wow. Okay. So
I've had conversations with DCU already about that, and I know they're working that every day, but it's going to take a while. They said,
okay.
with the DA's office and everything.
Good question though. Yeah, that was awful.
Yes.
Any other questions for Commander Malloy or Sergeant Burford? Otherwise, I see that Eric did drop his contact info in the chat in here in case anybody needs him. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you three joining the meeting.
Oh, anytime. Thank you for having us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Take care.
We have had such a lively meeting so far. At times it's flown. I love it. Okay. Really feeling my Leslie note today, I guess. Let's see. So really quick, I know Rebecca from the mayor's office is on. I just want to pop over to her and give her a chance to give us any updates. Rebecca, if you're there, I'll let you have the floor for a moment.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good evening. I actually wanted to be there in person tonight, and my husband is stuck at work late. So if you see my kids pop in, that's why. I just want to share two things with you all tonight. The biggest thing I want to emphasize is that actually, as we speak, the city's Office of Management and Budget is hosting a virtual public meeting, one of 3 that we do about the capital budget each year. And we do that for folks like you all to be able to engage directly with the department directors who are ultimately responsible for submitting proposals to the mayor for funding in next year's budget. So this is really important because the budget is quite literally the window into the city's priorities. If there is a project not budgeted, it's not going to get done. So if you all have, so tonight, and they divide the meetings up into kind of topical areas. Tonight's meeting is around housing, building demolition issues. So the departments that are speaking at that one tonight with residents are PLI, the URA, and the Department of City Planning. You all are at this meeting, which is great. You're engaged in your neighborhood. So since you couldn't go, I would encourage you to either attend the final one, which is tomorrow evening, also virtually. Tomorrow's is with our Department of Public Works and our City Parks Department, with a focus on what we're going to be talking about funding next year around parks, playgrounds, rec centers, those types of projects. If you can't attend any of these meetings, I get it, we're all busy. Please fill out the online survey and tell us where you want your tax dollars spent in your community for 2023. I'm going to drop the link to that survey in this chat. I know a lot of you are in person. Abby, are you able to kind of share your list?
I can share it on our Facebook after the meeting tonight, so everybody can comment.
Oh, that would be fantastic. Again, I'm trying, our team is really laser focused right now on trying to increase the amount of engagement we get in these surveys. You'd be surprised. We have entire sections of the city that have historically have zero survey responses. Not a single resident from some parts of our city have told us where they want to prioritize these dollars. So please fill that out. And then we'll be doing a similar round of engagement around the operating budget later this month. So the capital budget are like brick and mortar projects and buildings, things that cost more than $50,000 and have a life of 5 years and beyond. That's what's happening right now. The operating budget is how we staff our departments. So for example, I was at a community meeting last night where they were like, we need more DOMI staff dedicated to traffic calming. Let us know in the operating budget that you want us to increase our operating capacity in the Department of Mobility and Infrastructure. Public safety, our police bureau. If you think we should focus our operating dollars there, let us know. So I'll be continuing to share those resources and those links with you all throughout June. And that's pretty much all I got for you guys tonight. I'm sure you all saw the announcement about the pools, so I don't even need to get into what pools are opening, because that's always a hot topic that seems to make its way around like wildfire. But otherwise, I'll be on for the rest of the meeting and can take questions or jot down any concerns you all want me to take back to the team.
Thank you, Rebecca. Anybody have any questions or concerns for the mayor's office? Cool. No questions in the chat. All right, Rebecca, thank you. Faith, would you like to chime in from Councilman Wilson's office?
Good evening, everyone. So I do have a couple of updates for you all. I know, I believe in the last meeting, maybe in April, there was mention of trash all over the sidewalk. I did want to say that has been completed by DPW. So if you all experience any issues with that, I believe or Rialto, please feel free to let us know. We'll send it right in for the environmental services, have that taken care of. We also have reached out about the ripple pavement on Rialto Street. We have no updates on that as of right now, but Councilman Wilson is in talks with us on the finger about that concern. Also in talks is the 1954 wall, Lake Street, with that being condemned. We're working with Director Kinter to see what an update is on that. So hopefully we're able to see how we can have that cleaned up, and so it's not a nuisance for you all within the community. As far as the Troy Hill steps, our office, Zoe, and Airbnb all have individually sent a letter of support for federal funding for those steps. So once we have an update as far as how that funding is going to pan out and things of that sort, we will have an update for that as well. Rialto Street steps, we unfortunately do not have any more updates at this moment, other than we're working as hard as we can to get a manufacturer. As of right now, we do not have one solidified, but once we do have one, we'll be sure to let you all know as well. In regards to having the trees replanted, that's looking like it's going to be scheduled in the fall. So once that has a set date, we'll let you know about that. And we're still working with DPW as far as Calvin Rec Center and hiring an architect for design services. So that's at a bit of a standstill here as well. But other than that, Troy Hill Firehouse is going to be going before the zoning board tomorrow. So we're in pending details as far as that is concerned, but as she had mentioned, also budget season is here, so please feel free to bring any ideas to our office, or if you would like to take the survey, that's always a good idea as well. And if there was anything that I had not mentioned that you all have as a concern, please feel free to let me know, but other than that, those are all the updates that we have from our office this evening.
Very concise.
What steps are you referring to? The Troy Hill steps?
So she's talking about the steps across from Provident that go down to, yeah, those have been closed for quite some time. So that's great that there are letters of support out there for federal funding. That would be awesome. Any other questions? Yes, Sam.
Troy Hill Road, the weeds and the grass on the sidewalk is pathetic.
Great point. I think what we should, Troy Hill Road, there's quite a lot of poison ivy and other things kind of coming through the fencing. What should we do about that, Faith? Should we submit a 311 request or?
Yeah, I'll submit a 311 request on you all behalf as far as that's concerned. That way we can have that expedited quicker. I'll actually do that now while we're sitting.
Follow-up question too, the wall went up Troy Hill on the left-hand side and trees growing out of that wall. Eventually that wall's gonna fall over.
So
If it's stopping now, it's gonna stop much later.
yeah, Sam's talking about if you're coming up Troy Hill Road, Faith, there's that big colored wall that basically goes up to Cali, like Cali Rec Center. Along the top, there are trees growing. I think we even had a squash or a gourd of some sort growing there last fall. We may need to cut, if we can include that in the 311 request, to cut that back as well. It's pretty overgrown.
Okay.
Yes,
Also,
Penny.
coming up right out to, I just called everyone today, the weeds are coming out and there's a lot of traffic, there's a lot of cars that are gonna try, there's gonna be a lot of accidents because they're gonna try and not get scratched by that side.
That's true.
Like, that needs-
The knotweed on, but maybe we can do a separate 311 request for that. Thanks for the knotweed on the right side when you're coming up Rialto. I hit my car off that today too, and I thought,
It's terrible.
why don't you call Troy Hill?
That should be done right now. That's maybe,
Yeah, that kind of stuff grows so fast.
they can go back and really cut that out.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we could tear it all out. Super invasive. Okay, I'm gonna add the Rialto is getting, knotweed cut back. Too, okay. Anything else for Faith or Councilman Wilson's office? I know you've all been very patient. We're kind of coming up at the end of our hour here.
Is there anything that can be done with our playgrounds? They're really bad. I was back there with my grandson. There's some dangerous, like, equipment, like these kids need updated and safety.
I think that might be a budget survey request potentially as well.
Possibly, but I think something needs to be done with some of them now. It's
Now,
pretty bad.
okay. Faith, who do we need to speak to talk about playground, even just general maintenance?
I'll check with Councilman Wilson. I'm pretty sure that would be our department of partner, right? You have a specific relationship with playground and everything.
So the one back here at Lookout, really bad. That doesn't happen. There's nothing there for the kids to do. We need some
Updates.
Yeah. we need
Well,
some
let's fill out that budget. Let's fill out that capital budget survey. She said no, some neighborhoods have no participation. Maybe Troy Hill can be a squeaky wheel and we get lots of participation and then we'll get some additional funding. We'll take advantage of the other slackers out there. Any other questions for Faith?
Yeah, I would like some clarification about the railing for Rialto Street, because we've been told for about a year now that it was delayed by the manufacturer, and now being told that a manufacturer has not been selected is a pretty significant change, and not one that really sounds productive.
As far as that with getting a new manufacturer, I would have to check with Councilman Wilson as to why there was that shift from having a delay to having a all new manufacturer. I'm not too sure of the specific details and what may have happened with the manufacturer that was acquired previously.
Yeah, I mean, if we had a road that had to open up without guide rails, we wouldn't open the road up. So I don't know why, like, we're giving this project such short shrift. It's great that it's had so much money spent on it, but it's continuing to get ruined by not being completed 100%. And frankly, it's just unacceptable. And we need to have it finished the way we were promised it was going to be finished, and not keep punting it to new budgets and new years.
So I think that that's a renewed conversation that we need to have with Councilman Wilson, just the leaving that undone is as Ben said, is going to, we already know that trucks drive on those steps. We put up the guardrails, we already know we have safety issues there. I think if you can push him on that, that would be great. And I will also. Thank you, Ben, for contributing. Good call out. Oh, great. Rebecca on the chat says she can look into this Domi with Domi too. Rebecca, that would be amazing. The bridge was reopened in April of 2021, and the steps desperately need a railing, obviously with all that high traffic, and yet, you know, here we are. So
Yeah, and I attended that site visit with you all and with the councilman a couple months ago. I hadn't heard this about the manufacturer. So I'll try to get some info on that as well. And hopefully between Faith and I will get to the bottom of this. So sorry for you all. I know this is frustrating.
fabulous. Thank you very much. Okay, other questions, concerns? I have like 2 Troy Hill actual updates from us, I think. Okay, so first of all, I'm sure you've all seen the development going on at the top of Troy Hill Road. Barry had painted our lovely Troy Hill mural, which is now moved on into the ether as they develop that 3-story apartment building. I do not have a timeline update on that. I will share as soon as I do. They're obviously in they're still sort of in the rebuilding. Yeah, they've been no, they're not. This gets to watch them every day. So that building has parking underneath for there's 1 space per resident. Actually, they're gonna drive in. So I think it'd be great to revisit and share those plans out. So when I dig them up, I've asked the architect for plans, just so we can revisit that. They are doing greening, along the top of the road, Troy Hill Road. So when you come to the top, you don't look directly at the apartment building. There's some plants and things. So we're hoping that at least looks, kind of a nice gateway to Troy Hill. But I'm sure you've all seen that. So as we have more updates on that timeline, I'll let you know. The second thing is, last meeting, we had a very lively conversation about Rialto. Issues continue, not just with trucks driving on the steps, but just trucks using Rialto. I personally argued with the bus driver the other day, which was very exciting for me. He claimed that because it said no bus, it didn't say no buses, it just said no trucks. He was like, good to go. So one of the things I know, it was a wonderful interaction. However, I know this continues to be an ongoing frustration. Troy Hill Citizens is working to develop a survey, and the survey will be passed out to the neighborhood. It was my intention to do that between last meeting and this meeting. Unfortunately, we didn't get that out. I don't want to rush it, so I want to do data collection. So my goal is to have that out, in the next couple of weeks. Please keep an eye out for it. This basically will be looking at things like road usage, who's using the road, what times, what frustrations they have. There will be a file upload option. So if you've taken Rialto pictures over the many years, please feel free to dump them in there. And I'm really looking to aggregate as much data as possible. We're going to collect this physical forms. We're going to do this digitally via Facebook, via the newsletter. I'm hopefully going to recruit some excited board members to actually hand out physical copies to people on the steps, especially those who are on, bike or on foot. We want to get kind of full data. So stay tuned for that. I know this is an ongoing issue. It's just one of those things. So any questions about that, Evan?
So a suggestion that I've made in a number of places, and it's never been in an official form. I talked to Sally about it, and at least on kind of an informal survey basis, the people that I've suggested it to thought it might be a good idea. We'd all like Rialto Street widened, of course, but that's such a huge budgetary challenge that it seems unlikely to happen. But
yeah, unlikely.
Yes, but a much cheaper possibility that would improve things. It wouldn't be ideal, but it would improve things, is that there are 2 to 4 places that you could cut out, so that there would be some place that if you're seeing that you're going to have a problem with somebody wide, whomever is closest to that cutout can pull in and people can get past and then you can go. And if there were even 2 of those, like under the bridge, it's already flat. I mean, obviously there would be some kind of construction cost, but and some paving, but it would not be of the extent of regrading and replacing telephone poles and
That's very interesting, Evan. I like that idea. We're gonna have to investigate that. I might even
so I've suggested it to a few people in government and privately, and I think it would help. It's not a fix, but But if you knew that, well, just wait, I'm gonna pull in here, and then whatever could get by, and then you continue on your way, be pretty easy.
That's very interesting. Love
Good
that.
idea.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
Yeah, if we all hit that survey with this idea, it'll carry weight. So if 10 of us write to that survey and say, do cutouts on Rialto Street.
Yeah,
Maybe it'll get hurt.
I'm happy to help pursue that. I think could be an excellent solution to our Rialto pinch point.
Just saying something about that too, because it's nice to have, but you're asking for trouble then too. You're gonna ask for people to say, well, I got this trailer behind me.
Sure.
And they try going up and it'll coming down.
You'll have idiots everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Isn't that true, Penny? Okay, we're just a couple minutes after the hour. Anybody else have anything they want to talk about? Anyone they want to bring up? Anything else? Burning questions?
I think the
Yes.
people on Froman should be invited to this meeting because
Oh,
they
yes.
don't all know about
About-
what's happening.
So I'm happy to drop them a little note and let them know. And if you know any of them personally, you can feel free to tell them to drop into our Facebook or our email or just knock on my door, whatever, or Janet's door. No, just kidding. Sorry, Janet.
A lot of the elderly up here
Don't
don't
do
use
face-
computers.
Well, I'm happy, they could write me a note if they would like and.
They
you know.
don't know you, honey. You
Mhm.
see what I'm
see
saying? We
what you're
lost
saying.
our communication when we lost the newsletter.
Mhm.
So we don't have good communication up here.
That's an excellent point.
I live across the street.
Mhm. From here.
Coming here, I told 5 neighbors where I was going. They had no idea.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
How do we reach out to all of them again?
Well, do you want to stay for a couple minutes after we dismiss and we'll chat about it? Okay, sounds like a plan. Anything else from anybody before we